This week, Ashes of Creation participated in PAX East. They provided a 1-hour development panel discussion, as well as a chance for players who were there to play a copy of the game with the content that's available so far as part of Alpha 0. I think we can all agree that the in-game footage looks amazing, but let's talk about the development. They're promising that the game will be scalable with a high amount of detail. They've been testing the game regularly, getting 60 frames per second, which sounds amazing. And they've also been very attentive to the community feedback on the forums with regards to how the players want the game to be developed and the things that we feel are important. They also mentioned that their character tree will be very in-depth, meaning that there will be a lot of customization available with how you create the look of your character, the race of your character, all of those kinds of things. They also introduced a new feature which I hadn't really thought about before, which is the fact that some of the quests are going to require a party. Now, in most MMOs, when you start a quest, you're on your own, and you're told exactly where to go, exactly what to do. There's hardly any dialogue. It's very basic. With this, it sounds like there will actually be more of a story and much more cooperation with a party, at least for some quests. Now, with that in mind, it's going to be even more important to have a balanced party with people who have chosen different kinds of classes. For example, during the quest, you may come across a door that only a mage can unlock, so you'll have to have a mage in your party to continue at all. There are other areas that you'll run into where there might be poisonous fog or something along those lines that a cleric can clear up. You might not necessarily need to have them to get through it, but it's certainly going to make it a lot easier. Rangers are going to be required to help find the path to your next objective. Once again, you may be able to find the objective eventually without a ranger, but it would certainly make it a lot easier to have one along to help guide your path. These special abilities from the different classes are called utilities. I would imagine that all 8 classes will have utilities like this that may be required to complete certain quests. Perhaps the most interesting part of the development panel discussion was the Q&A time from fans of the game at the end. They asked several questions and were able to get answers directly from the development staff. So let's talk about some highlights. So one person asked about endgame content, what that will be like. And the answer to that was that there really is no specific endgame per se, because the nodes are so dynamic. The world can constantly change. So even once a node has been upgraded all the way to a metropolis, there will still be incentives for high-level players to change that dynamic and maybe level up a different node or invest even more resources into that node to make more money off of it. Another question had to do with new players interacting with high-level players who have been in the game for a while. And I really like the answer to this. The way the game is designed, there are certain nodes where players will start, and those nodes will tend to become very large very quickly because those will be ones that people are familiar with. And as new players join, the high-level players will have incentive to come back to those same starting cities for services that the newer players can provide. For example, high-level players will need gear that requires a lot of materials, and the newer players may be more likely to be willing to gather those materials. The high-level players will need a lot of materials to be gathered for them to support their activities, anything from crafting their gear to laying siege on nodes. It's all going to require a lot of materials. They even mentioned that there may be some sort of mentorship type program where high-level players will be able to partner up with newer players to help them out. I really like that idea. I think it'll really help build a strong community of players that are not just focused on their own strength, but also on helping other people and having fun with them. It would be great if there's content that high-level players can enjoy right alongside the newer players. Another interesting mechanic that they talked about was that nodes that have been leveled up for a long time will have increasing rewards associated with taking them over. So there will not necessarily be nodes that become large right away and they're just stuck that way forever. There will be more and more incentive for players from other nodes to actually attack or siege those nodes to be able to get those huge rewards. I think that'll really help to prevent the game from becoming stale, or for one particular group of players from a particular clan to really grab control and keep it for a long time. Another good question was about the different kinds of players and how all of them will have meaningful content. And again, I love the answer that they gave to this. There are a lot of players who enjoy combat, but for them to get the best armor, they are going to be relying on good crafters who are devoting their time to training crafting. But the crafters in turn will also need to rely on people who are gathering materials and transporting materials. So there's sort of that ecosystem where the fighters might be helping to deliver materials to a crafter that will then be used to craft them better armor. And so everyone will have to work together and kind of fill these different roles for the economy to really work. They also acknowledge that some players don't have as much time to play as others, so there will be events that will be relatively quick but still exciting that casual players can jump in and enjoy participating in without having to devote a ton of time to level up first. Most MMORPGs are very heavily focused on combat, and combat is 90% of what you have to do to level up and unlock new content. But with Ashes of Creation, there will actually be many other types of experience that you can gain. Combat is sort of your adventuring class, but you'll also be able to focus on gaining experience in artisanship, religion, organization, or even racial classes. And it's still yet to be seen how that will work, but those are some of the types of experience that they mentioned during the Q&A. The next question was about being able to create mods for the game, particularly for creating customized user interfaces. Their answer to that is that the user interface will inherently be highly customizable, so everyone will be able to sort of arrange the buttons and views the way that they want. However, they don't want certain people to be able to have mods that not everyone would have installed. So they will not be allowing anyone to create mods in that sense. Another interesting mechanic in the game is that you can't specialize in every single crafting path. You're going to have to pick a specific path that you want to follow. And so there will be many different people that have different specialties, and they'll most likely have to work together to provide all the different resources that people will want. There will be 3 different types of player housing. The first type is instanced, which means a certain node will control access to those housing spots. The second type will be static, which is in a node, and the third is a freehold. Freeholds, you can have 1 per account, but they will be large, and so you'll be able to put a lot on your land. In some other games, there have been issues where as soon as new land is released, players instantly buy it all, and there's no way for normal players to really compete with that. And so they are taking that into account and building the mechanics so that everyone will have a fair chance at getting player-owned housing. And lastly, there was a big announcement made. They announced that the next phase of alpha testing will involve large-scale battles, castle sieges, and arena modes. This is going to be part of Alpha 1 Phase 1, and this will be starting in the 4th quarter of 2018. That's it for now. If you'd like to keep up with the latest news about Ashes of Creation, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.